I know we can do better than that. Come on, let's give another hand clap for that. It was definitely outstanding to see Thriving for Recovery. My name is Walter Ragland. I'm the Executive Director for AMS of Oshkosh. That's here in Oshkosh's Addiction Medical Solutions, medication assisted treatment. And I'm here just with a small task today. First of all, let me just say it is so good to see so many people in this room. Give yourself another hand clap of praise. My job is to introduce our 2024 We Heart You Recovery in Our Community keynote speaker. No other but the former Milwaukee Bucks player and NBA All-Star, Vin Baker, is in his seventh season as an assistant coach with the Milwaukee Bucks. Baker, who was part of the Bucks coaching staff that won the 2021 NBA championship. Come on. Vin Baker is not just great on and off the court, but he is also the author of one of the most greatest books that I tell you that you should read, God and Starbucks. He'll probably talk a little bit more about that, but I'm telling you now, it's a must read. And what it does, it talks about his journey through his addiction and recovery. And he has opened in the Milwaukee area, the Vin Baker Recovery for people who are struggling with this disease called addiction. Vin started with the Bucks as an assistant coach in January of 2018, after beginning the 2017 through 2018 season as the analyst for the Bucks games on Fox Sports in Wisconsin. A 13-year NBA veteran, Baker got the start in coaching with the Texas Legends of the NBA D-League in 2016 through 2017. A four-time NBA All-Star and two-time All-NBA honoree, Baker played the first 4 seasons of his NBA career with the Bucks, who selected him with the 8th overall pick in the 1993 NBA draft. In 4 seasons with Milwaukee, he averaged 18 points and 9.5 rebounds per game. Throughout his career, Baker had average of 15 points, 7.4 rebounds, and 1.9 assists over 604 career contests with Milwaukee, Seattle, Boston, New York, Houston, and the Los Angeles Clippers. He was also part of the USA men's national basketball team that took home the gold medal during the 2000 Summer Olympics. How many people remember that? Baker, the author, a memoir, God and Starbucks, an NBA superstar journey through addiction and recovery, and has opened Vin Baker Recovery, a treatment recovery and mental health center for the people of Milwaukee and surrounding areas. Vin also has a nonprofit organization, a 501c3, Vin Baker Bouncing Back Foundation. This is to ensure that no one will be turned away from treatment because of their fees. That's right. Because we know so many times people are turned away because they don't have the funding. But this organization is designed to help those who cannot pay for recovery or pay for their treatment. Vin, one of his favorite quotes is, when you find your purpose-driven life, you start living. So please, help me to welcome my friend and also my colleague, Vin Baker.
Thank you. So that was the very first time I've ever come into a room. I've always dreamt about playing that song. Walking in, that was my very first time. It's amazing. Literally picked that song about 10 minutes ago, and I've dreamt about it for like the last 5 years, and it was just as I thought it was. I was about to run up here, but I caught myself. But thank you guys so much for coming today. Thank you for having me. I'm honored and I'm blessed to be here. I have asked that I don't know how long I'll speak. I'm going to be led by the Spirit, and but I do want to do a Q&A at the end. I think dialogue is important. It's important to me, and I'm a PK, so I can get going, and I can be here for longer than I think I need to be. And I'm fresh off of a flight from Sacramento. And if you guys saw that, anyone watched the game, I was ready to get out of California last night. I was telling my business partner, Michael Erico, in the hallway, the game was pretty much in tow in the third quarter, and I started checking my flight time. It was time to get out of California. We didn't enjoy that Sacramento game last night, but nevertheless, I thank God for being here. I'm so blessed and humbled by being here today. I'm going to talk a little bit about my story, and then I want to share with you guys, and you guys share with me. I definitely want to get something out of today, and I want you to get something out of today, so I think the dialogue is important. I do want, before I get started, he's not going to be happy about this, but I do want my brother and my sister to stand up. The Ericos back in the back, where are they? Can you guys stand up, please, or wave your hand? That's my brother and my sister. Who were very instrumental in helping me to start Vin Baker Recovery. Michael's been in this business his entire life with Addiction Medical Solutions, and so by the grace of God, I got an opportunity to meet them years ago, and we started this conversation about Vin Baker Recovery and paying forward the wonderful life of sobriety, and here we are today. We opened yesterday in Milwaukee, our first center, so we're excited. Before I get started, I just want like a little bit of audience participation, right? And I talked about the Q&A at the end, but I just want you to touch 2 or 3 people next to you and just say to them, you matter. Take your time and look them in the eye and say, you matter. Awesome, thank you. Thank you. I read this poem the other day, and I want to share it with you guys, called You Matter. You can matter to me even if you've been alone, run down and on your own. Even if you feel small or broken, fragile or meek, doesn't matter to me when you're weak. You can still matter to me. Don't disappear behind the lie that you are insignificant. Don't think you're a burden too small or your life so unimportant that you should bury your shame. And instead of finding peace, you just give in and take the blame. Don't hold back your plea, because dear love, you matter to me. I will listen, share your heart. I will care for it. Don't cast yourself apart, because you are not alone. No matter the plan, the shame, or the guilt, no matter the joy, the laughter, or love, you mattered. You matter, and you always will. That's the end of the poem. Strength doesn't come from what you can do. It comes from the things that you once thought you couldn't do. So grateful and blessed to be here with you guys today. My life has been, I've been commissioned now, more than just being a basketball coach. I've been commissioned to help and provide hope and provide help to those people who are struggling with the same disease that I struggled with. I'm here, as I mentioned before, and we had Pastor stand up before, and I promise you, we're going to try not to turn this into church, right? But I couldn't stand up on this stage and not say that the first reason I'm here is because of God's grace, favor, and mercy in my life. And I also have, because I've been a professional athlete before, I've had intestinal fortitude. I've got it in my gut to keep fighting. The will to win and to overcome obstacles. The patience and the effort that goes into sobriety. The hope that needs to be provided by me and others. Hope plays an instrumental role in our commitment to our work, our healing, and our sobriety. The belief that there's something better for me than my current circumstances is why I'm here today. The reason I'm here is we matter. I matter. I'm here to help break the silence and to remove the stigma. So I'll pause there for a second and for my dialogue here, and stigma and removing stigma and providing hope and help. It's interesting because being a professional athlete, and I'm probably jumping way ahead of my speech here, but I feel compelled. I feel like we're family in here, so I don't want to keep reading. Removing the stigma is big to me. It's very important to me. It's one thing to have a disease, alcoholism, and then also for me, my disease was played out in public. So in some ways for me, I can't speak for anyone else, it made it doubly hard to achieve sobriety because every waking moment in my heyday, my addiction was played out publicly. And so the stigma was more wrapped around how could a professional athlete that's been given so much succumb to the disease of alcoholism. So it's important for me to remove the stigma or the notion that addiction picks and chooses its victim or picks and chooses its person. We have to, in this room, remove that stigma. I never thought it would be possible, the thought of going through life without getting high or drunk. I've been there before. It seemed surreal to me to even think about not being high or drunk. Some people are constantly searching for something different, yet it seems we are most comfortable when things stay the same. I had to understand that being challenged in life was inevitable. I knew that as an athlete, but I didn't quite understand it off the court, that being challenged is inevitable, but being defeated is optional. I wrote this, I kid you not, I'm reading my notes again. I wrote one of my favorite songs, "We Fall Down, But We Get Up," right? We fall down, but we get up, right? It's important to understand. I talked to a group of kids maybe about a month and a half ago in Denver, Colorado, when the Bucks were playing the Nuggets. It's inevitable that we're gonna fall down. It's inevitable that we're gonna face adversity. But it's optional whether you get up. A little bit of my history. I grew up in Old Saybrook, Connecticut. I'm sure you're all familiar with that town. My parents were very strict. They had moved from the South. My mom from Florida, which is really not the dirty South. It's, you know, it's the South. But my dad was from North Carolina, and they moved to Old Saybrook, Connecticut in hopes of a better life. And my parents were very strict. My dad, as I mentioned, is to this day a pastor in a Baptist minister. So in our house, you know, I'm the only child, so the 10 Commandments, we rule the house by the 10 Commandments. It wasn't like normal rules. It was, thou shalt not do this, 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 and this. And then the worst part about that, there was a plaque in the house, and I'm an only child, that says, spare the rod, spoil the child, which means that's only me who can. Wasn't a bunch of kids, so spare the rod, spoil the child means that's only for me. But my parents' discipline, it paid off. It really did. It allowed me to understand the goodness of God. My faith was built from my childhood, and it became an unshakable faith, an unbreakable faith. I went to the University of Hartford, which is in Connecticut, and I'm sure you're all familiar with that school as well. I went to the University of Hartford and played there for 4 years, and was drafted in 1993 by the Milwaukee Bucks, and the pastor said a bunch of this stuff, but it sounds better coming from me. I played there for 4 years and was drafted by our beloved Milwaukee Bucks in 1993 with the 8th pick. Obviously the most exciting time of my life, being drafted in the NBA, period. And then I think the most exciting part about me being drafted that night in Detroit was I did not realize that the Milwaukee Bucks were drafting me, so it made it that much more special that I was drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks. For 4 years here, before I was traded to the Seattle Supersonics, as Pastor alluded to it, I was a 3-time NBA All-Star. I think I was a 1-time All-NBA selection. And that's kind of cool. Like a side note, I'll tell you, me and Giannis have a handshake. I don't know if anyone's really watched the game, but Giannis and I have a handshake. It has to do with the All-NBA. It's super cool. So now you have to get to the game or watch the game before the starting lineup, just to see the handshake. But then I was traded to Seattle. When I was traded to Seattle, one of the things, I'll back up just a minute. One of the things that when I was here in Milwaukee, and it's in my book, God in Starbucks, so it's well documented now, that when I was here, I developed, I started to smoke weed, which I had never done in college. I started to smoke, and I started to do it every day. It went from recreational to every day. And I enjoyed, as I mentioned, I enjoyed success while doing it, right? So I wasn't connecting negative or bad with using recreational marijuana. I was on top of the world. In 5 years, I was a 4-time NBA All-Star. I was selected to the Olympic team, and a fast fact, I was given my own brand Jordan shoe. So the elite of the elite. And once I got to Seattle, I started having these awful heart palpitations. And so I connected that with the recreational drug use. And so I shifted to alcohol. And when I shifted to alcohol, my first year in Seattle, 1997, 1998, again, it was recreational. And the success on the court was still very high. So at the end of 1997, 1998, I was starting to drink weekends, after games, maybe about 3 times a week. And on the court, the Seattle Supersonics were very good. I finished that year second team All-NBA. The Olympics were coming in the next 2 years. But then something happened, like that summer, in the summer of 1998, after finishing probably my best year as a professional, that summer I became an alcoholic. Like literally the switch turned on and it was no longer recreational, I needed to do it every single day. I didn't understand it, I couldn't fathom what was going on. It was just a party at the time, one big party. And by the time I came back for that season in 1999, or late 1998, I was a full-blown alcoholic. So just use your imagination and wrap your mind around this thought. Like all the success that I just talked about, 4-time NBA All-Star, brand Jordan shoe, considered one of the top 20 players in all the world. And I was entering the fall of 1998 as a full-blown alcoholic. Just to show of hands, who tells somebody that's going on? Or do you just kind of ride it out? Show of hands, you just ride it out and see what. Now we're getting closer and closer to being family, right? Some people who didn't raise their hand, I don't know where we're at right now. But I came back to the season as a full-blown alcoholic. It was unreal. And so I played throughout the season, and I didn't know, like I had the signs of being an alcoholic, but I didn't ask anybody, I didn't talk to anyone about being an alcoholic. It was just, I needed to drink every waking moment of the day. And so, at the end of the year, I was about to be a free agent. So, a big contract, not the contracts today, but a relatively big contract for that day. So, at the end of the season, let me back up. During the season, I started to have these weird shakes on the court, which is something connected to, obviously, alcoholism, but I self-diagnosed. And so when I self-diagnosed, I started to understand I need the alcohol to function throughout the day and to function throughout the games. It was real. I'm about to be a free agent, so I tell my agent and the organization, hey, I have a problem, or I try to self-medicate and make it to free agency. Needless to say, I made it to free agency, I made it through the season, and at the end of the season, the Supersonics said, we think you have an issue. We think you have a problem, my friend. And in my stinking thinking, no idea, no thoughts of getting sober, no thoughts of living life on life's terms, I said, I don't. Where's the money? Right? Show of hands who would have said, where's the money? Still some people don't want to get close to me up here. It's fine. So, the Sonics said, okay, it's an aberration. Like everyone had, it happened. He's one of the elite players in the world. We're gonna push through with this deal. We're gonna put some things on the deal where we got to be safe and comfortable knowing that you're okay and we're okay. And so the Sonics, as a full-blown alcoholic, they gave me a 6-year, $80 million deal. 6 years and $80 million. Show of hands who gets excited if you're an alcoholic and sick. Okay. And how do you party after that? Right? So I signed this as a full-blown alcoholic. I signed a 6-year, $80 million deal, and it was a moment in my life that changed my life drastically. And it was necessary. Like, I'll get to why this was necessary to how I got to you today. After signing this deal, the signers were like, he clearly is a full-blown alcoholic, and they traded me to the Boston Celtics, and I was able to convince the Boston Celtics at the time that I was not. And so they made the deal to bring me to Boston. And so when I came to Boston, I was coming back home to New England. I'm from Connecticut, so I was coming back home to New England, which was going to add to the already whatever was going on in my life coming back home. And so within about 3 to 4 months of being with the Boston Celtics realized there is an issue and we need to deal with the issue. And I will say this, I want to beat the Boston Celtics this year. But I want to say that they were very instrumental in helping me get the help that I needed, very instrumental. The ownership that is there, the group that is there now was very instrumental. Wick Rosebeck was very instrumental in helping me, trying to help me get the help that I needed. And so once that the Celtics found out that it was an issue, they put an addendum in the contract that said if you can't drink for a year, and if you do drink within the year, we're going to take back, at the time, it was approximately $50 million. And so I signed that addendum, and I relapsed, which is, anyone know that for some, maybe most, it's part of recovery. For me, it was part of my recovery. And so when I relapsed, they terminated the contract, and then I was out of the NBA for about 3 or 4 months. I went on to sign with the New York Knicks and played with the Clippers. All the teams that he said at the end, those were like a month. It really, I should really take that off the bio. Because I was only really there for like 2 months at a time. It really doesn't count towards my pension. But the wonderful part about this story, and I love the reaction when I said the 50 million, 100 million, I saw some of the faces like, whoa, but it was necessary for me to save my life, right? It was necessary. One of the questions that, when I first got sober, I'll celebrate 14 years of sobriety April 17th. One of the questions that I got in my first couple of years of sobriety, when people wanted to hear the story, especially when I was working with Starbucks, that was the story. This is the stigma. This was the story. Vin Baker loses $100 million, works at Starbucks. Now you wonder why I'm after the stigma so bad. Like, loses $100 million, works at Starbucks. Nowhere in the article he's saving his life. And I said to a reporter, I had gotten so fed up with the question, like, you know, and they didn't ask it right out, but in certain ways, roundabout ways, how can you lose $100 million and then serve caramel macchiatos, grande talls, and ventis? How does that even happen? And you're 6'11", this is crazy. If I was, I'm gonna be honest, if I was a person, a reporter, I couldn't avoid it either. Like, I have to my whole story would go home. After the interview, I would go home and write a whole different story, and that's what happened. But I also said, like, I think it stopped once, because, you know, in 2016, 17, 14, 15, whenever this was, I said to one of the journalists, I said, guys, you gotta stop asking me about the money. It's absurd and it's insulting. It's absurd. It would be like if someone had a Lamborghini or some expensive car and they crashed it and they walked out of it and someone asked them about the car. Absurd. Like, in our journey, in this journey of sobriety and life, like, you can't quantify how important it is to live life on life's terms and live a sober life. And that's what I'm living today, a sober life. And last night I had to do this flying on the plane from Sacramento to here. I went into some of the articles that were written. I just want to share some of the articles that were trying to make me feel like I didn't matter anymore. Like, if it wasn't about making 20 points and getting 10 rebounds, you don't matter anymore. Like, and as a matter of fact, what you've done to your matter is crazy. Here's, in 2000, and so you guys can do kind of math, like, when I was sober, these were the articles that were coming out. Slam Magazine wrote, "The Curious Case of Vin Baker." You ever have somebody talking about you and you standing right there like, the curious case? In 2003, part of, you know, getting the help and starting with hope is to admit. The Los Angeles Times, the headline said, "Vin Baker says he's an alcoholic." The New York Daily News, notice that the Los Angeles Times, I'm somewhere in Connecticut, mind you, so I don't know how I'm making it to the New York Daily News and to the Los Angeles Times, but it's happening. The New York Daily News, you're gonna love this one. "From alcohol to macchiatos." It's actually pretty good. So this is 2024, I said 14 years, April 17th. This article was 2015, so in the midst of my sobriety. Vin Baker lost everything to alcohol and money woes. Stigma is defined in the dictionary as a mark of disgrace or infamy. The stigma of addiction. The mark of disgrace or infamy associated with this disease. We've got it in the stigma. One of the articles that I read about the reasons for being sober, the important reasons for being sober. Your overall health improves. Your damaged relationships can be fixed. But the fourth one is the one that I love most. You'll be able to focus on things that truly matter. That truly matter. This room matters. We all matter. And that's why I came today, to focus on what truly matters. I would love to win a championship this year. I would love to have a second parade. But today, this is more important than the parade. This is more important than the Bucks winning a championship. This room is important to the state of Wisconsin. This room is important to stigma, to addiction. And we have to approach, I'm in the gym every day with the Milwaukee Bucks, and we are approaching, you guys have watched, we're approaching this like it's life or death, right? We gotta win a championship this year. This is how we need to approach stigma and addiction. How we need to approach hope and help, like it's our championship. I'm gonna end, and then I wanna open up for Q and A and have a conversation. In the book of Romans, it says, 8:37 says, that in all things, we are more than conquerors. We are more than conquerors. I'm determined never to go back to addiction. But more importantly, I'm determined to help those people come out of addiction. I chose sober because I wanted a better life. And I stay sober because I have one. So I have much more here, but I want to open up the floor. I would love to have some dialogue and talk about why we are here. Any questions, any conversations, I would love to have that dialogue. I want to lead as if it was a conversation and talk as if it's a conversation about how we can make each other better and how we can support each other.
We got one here.
I'll start it off then. I'm back here. I have a question. So you talked about how you had a large contract, you were very successful, you're winning championships. What gets you to trust the organization with a conversation that helps you? How do you ask the question? How do you feel safe knowing that you have all of that, but you want to be successful out of the question you need to ask the people that you should trust?
So I think with all the things and that's a great question, all the things that I've gone through and all the examples, and there's so many more. But the one thing that is important to me, like at the end of the day, for me, the great job that I have and the great players that I work with and the great organization that supports me, like this is life or death. It's you win or you lose at it. And so there's no question for me, there's no space unsafe for me to talk to anyone about it. There's no unsafe place for someone to come and speak to me about it. Because I've been on the brink of death. I was in I forgot what year it was, but I was it was really rock bottom for me. Like the lowest that I possibly could have gone physically, spiritually, financially, and I will never forget this when I'm talking about life or death. I never forget this. I was at a hotel in Old Saybrook, Connecticut. I just had my house foreclosed on. I just had my restaurant shut down. Things were just going way left for me. And I remember being in a room and with 2 or 3 friends and smoking and drinking, and my heart literally started going crazy to the point where I felt like I was losing consciousness. And I called 911 like within minutes. And as I was riding in the ambulance, I heard the EMT say, "Imminent doom." I will never forget. She said, "Imminent doom." I had never heard the phrase in my life, "imminent doom." And so the spaces we need to have conversations in, this is important. Like it's important it's life and death. We can't afford to, wait or be afraid or challenge stigma. We have to step into those unsafe spaces to save lives.
Next question. Please stand. Do we have a microphone?
Yeah, we do.
If you have a question, please just stand. We're going to bring a microphone to you, please.
So first, I just had to say, I sent a picture of you to my son, who is like the biggest Bucks fan, and he said, "No flipping way!" Thanks for that. But I said, "Do you have any questions for Vin Baker?" And he said, "You talked a lot about addiction today, but he was curious about what your thoughts are on talking about mental health and breaking the stigma around talking about mental health."
Yeah, it is so important to talk about mental health, and I'd be remiss to say, like, the boys, Giannis and Thanasis, are working in a space with their foundation with mental health, and hopefully we'll be working, Vin Baker Recovery and Addiction Medical Solutions will be working with them as well. One of the things that and I'm glad you asked that, like, one of the things I ask my daughters every day, are you happy? Right? It's important. Like, not, I just need to know, are you happy? It's as simple as that sounds, like, when you leave here today, ask someone, are they happy? Are they in a good space? Because it's important. I think mental health is like, we've worked so long under the assumption that everyone's okay. And we haven't reminded people and let people know it's okay not to be okay.
All right, I want to thank you so much for being here today and sharing your story. As another fellow recovering person, you know, it's always easy to spot people. Like you said, everybody knew you had a problem before you did. You were trying to deny it. Could you give us some tips when you're noticing somebody is struggling maybe, they're thinking about it, you want to initiate that conversation and ask them. Could you share some tips on some things you do?
Well, I think the number one thing is to come from a place of love and make sure they know you're not coming from a place of judging. I've had people very close to me assume that because I have Vin Baker Recovery, or because I have so many years of sobriety, that I'm above the comment. I'm not. I'm only a drink away. So understanding that when you speak to someone in that space, speak from a place of empathy, and they have to feel your empathy. They can't feel your 14 years of sobriety and Vin Baker Recovery. They got to feel that you've been through what they're going through immediately. And so that is my advice, like, come from a place and make that place. I'll share a quick story with you. Like, I can't really give the names, obviously, but I had a young man that was going through alcoholism, and he was 22 years old, and it was just blowing my mind. I'm like, 22, and at the time I was like 48, and so no one tried to count how old I am now. Just this was a few years back. But anyways, I had to step into this space, and I had to empathize with a 22-year-old. Like, the disease is the disease, and I had gotten from people very close to him that it was an issue. And so what was interesting is, what was fun for me is I got the opportunity literally to walk him through every space that I had been through. And a kind of fun story is he got sober, and I was calling. Now I'm a big guy in Starbucks, right? So I've written a book. I know Howard, I've worked there for a year. So I actually started calling. I actually called some of the top representatives. I said, like, the regional directors, like the big bosses, like, hey, I need to get a kid a job as a barista. They're like, man, what? And they did. They got him a job at Starbucks. It was great. I'm like, well, you got to go through what I got to go through. You gotta write names on cups just like I did. But I think empathizing and speaking to them in a space of love and not judging, and they have to feel that. Like when you leave the conversation, you can't feel. It can't be just you feeling good because you had it. They have to feel good.
We have time for 2 more questions. So we have one here, and is there someone else? Sir, if you want to go ahead and stand, that would be great. Thank you.
So my question has to do with parents. What do you say to parents when their child has been struggling or if they've lost a child?
I would say the conversation, and I alluded to it and kind of mentioned it just now, like having the conversation, and you have to step into that space and stay in that space. They have to feel the love. You have to educate them. You guys have to become educated together. As I mentioned, the hardest part for me, one of the hardest things for me was not telling the organization. They knew. It was telling my dad. Right? That was the hardest. My pastor, my dad, my best friend, that was the hardest thing, is to tell my dad. And ironically, my dad was my last trip to detox, a center my dad brought me. I called him. I was comfortable enough, ready enough to call my father and said, Dad, I'm ready to change my life. But part of that is because I knew that my father would understand, and he would be there to support me. So it's on our job as parents too, to make them understand that I care for you and you're my child and I love you and I'm going to go through this with you, no matter how long it takes. Because that's one of the things that will give you, if you're on the other side and you're the child, it will give you pause. Does that make sense?
We're the same age, we're good. My addiction's gambling, and when I look back on my life, lots of foreshadowing of the problem. Putting money into high-risk stocks instead of, spreading it out. When did you come to realize or come past the stigma part yourself? I mean, I wear my addiction on my chest as a badge of honor. I'm more proud of the fact that I'm in recovery than I am embarrassed about having the problem. How long did it take for you to get to a point of that?
It's a great question, and I attempted sobriety, recovery over 5 times. My first trip wasn't my last trip. It took me a while to get over not just the things that I read, the stigmas, the articles, I was actually dealing with the addiction. And to be perfectly honest with you, the conditions didn't make me get sober. In other words, when Boston was like, hey, you gotta get sober or else, I gotta get sober for this, I gotta get sober for that. Once I took those conditions out and made it about just living a healthy life, it became easier to prioritize sober living. So I took away all I gotta get back to the NBA, they're talking about me. When I started taking out all the outside noises and focusing on me, that's when things started to really change for me one day at a time, because it has to be something that you want. It can't be something that someone else wants for you. So that was big for me. I'm going to use my name in the third person, which is going to be weird because I don't mean to use it in the third person. But when I started thinking about what people thought about Vin Baker and just start thinking about the alcoholic, that's when I started to do better. Can we play the song one more time?
Come on, we can clap our hands.